Right, I'm back again. I've taken a deep breath, it's all fine. And now I'm going to tell you about a group of people you may not have actually heard of. So I'm pretty sure by now most people have heard the word Rohingya, as in Rohingya Muslims. And now I'm going to tell you about Rohingya Christians because they seem to be ever so slightly overlooked by the mainstream. I can't imagine why. Okay, so here we go. Let's have a little look at this. And the article that I'm reading is from persecution.org, and it is part of a series which analyses the unique challenges that are faced by Myanmar's Christian population after the coup, which was only February the 1st of this year. So, immediately condemned by the international community and now considered a genocide, the Burmese military, or Tatmadaw, began the latest in a series of brutal military crackdowns against Rohingya Muslims in August of 2017. The Tatmadaw has persecuted Myanmar's Rohingya Muslims for decades, but the ongoing genocide launched that August is the most intense action to date and has resulted in the displacement of at least, get on this, 742,000, that's displacement, and the deaths of tens of thousands. So, amid the crisis facing Rohingya Muslims and the international community's efforts to respond to it, another group has often found itself, overlooked, and that is Rohingya Christians. A small minority within another small minority, Rohingya Christians have long found themselves on the receiving end of persecution, not only from the Tatmadaw, but from other Rohingya as well. I wonder who. Now, as the Tatmadaw solidifies its grasp on the country after the February 1st coup, Rohingya Christians find themselves in a dangerous, and I'm going to add, terrifying position. So here's a brief history and background. The Rohingya are an Indo-Aryan ethnic group, part of a pastoralist people that migrated from Central Asia to South Asia in the 2nd century BC, quite a while ago. The vast majority follow a blend of Sunni Islam and Sufism, while a small percentage practices Hinduism and an even smaller part follow Christianity. An estimated 1 million Rohingya lived in the Buddhist majority Myanmar in the western state of Rakhine before the Tatmadaw's offensive in 2017 that I just mentioned. That number has dropped as hundreds of thousands of Rohingyas seek refuge in neighbouring Bangladesh. And let me tell you, they have their own problem with Christian persecution over there. The early history of the Rohingya in Myanmar is a debatable subject and one that's complicated by Rakhine's state's location on the border with Bangladesh and its position within the Arakan region, which has experienced centuries basically of shifting politics. Regardless of exactly when the Rohingya people settled in Myanmar, though, the Tatmadaw has gone to considerable lengths to propagate the nationalist idea that Rohingya do not belong to Myanmar, even going as far as to not recognise the term Rohingya. I could point it out to them. I can see it in front of me. This idea was enshrined into law in the 1974 Constitution and the Citizen Act of 1982, which lists 135 acceptable national races and requires that members of any group not listed provide documentation that their ancestors settled in Myanmar before 1823. The list does not include Rohingya, allowing the government to refuse them citizenship based on their race. This state of affairs renders them stateless and largely unable to access government services such as education, healthcare, and even things that one would assume are pretty standard, such as marriage certificates, etc. So the exodus to Bangladesh. Violence broke out in Myanmar's Rakhine state in August of 2017 after a militant group known as the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, not to be confused with the British version, claimed responsibility for attacks on police and army posts. In retaliation, Myanmar's government razed at least 55 villages. They didn't lift them up, destroyed at least 55 villages and waged a brutal campaign of murders, rape, torture, and indiscriminate shelling against the Rohingya, forcing hundreds of thousands to flee. The refugees walked for days through jungles and mountains or took a dangerous marine route to seek shelter in and around the refugee settlements of Kutupalong and Nayapara in Bangladesh's Cox's Bazar district. Among the over 700,000 refugees were approximately 1,500 Rohingya Christians, all living representatives of the harsh impact of Tatmadaw rule on Myanmar's religious minorities. And now we come to the discrimination against the Rohingya Christians. So Rohingya Christians face a double threat, as can obviously be inferred by what I've just read. First, from the Tatmadaw, and again from radical Muslims among their Rohingya neighbours. They are often seen as traitors to their people and are consequently rejected by their community. As underprivileged as the Rohingya are in general, Rohingya Christians often face more trouble when they profess their faith, including, not exclusively, but including the threat of abduction, harassment, sexual abuse, and the removal of their children from the limited educational opportunities available to other Rohingya. Much of the violence against Rohingya Christians is very local in nature, neighbours attacking neighbours, but some of it's more organised. And speaking of one such organisation, a Rohingya Christian wrote in a letter published through the International Mission Board that his uncle was being pursued by the ARSA. And he reported he has been running from them for 4 months. The ARSA attacked Rohingya Christian refugees in January of 2020. The attack, I can't believe you haven't heard of it. I'm only kidding. The attack took place in a community of Christian families living in Kutupalong refugee camp, dubbed the world's largest after the latest influx of the Muslim Rohingya who fled from Myanmar into Bangladesh in 2017. In a follow-up attack on the same camp shortly after, 400 ARSA militants destroyed a church and the 25 Christian homes. One underage girl was kidnapped. Guess what happened then? Forcibly converted to Islam and married, I'm going to just say repeatedly raped with some illusion of legitimacy, because it's certainly not a marriage if it's an underage girl. Well, we are talking Islam, but let's get off of that. Okay, so this is religious freedom for the Chin people after the coup. So, due to their location, Rohingya refugees have avoided involvement in the recent unrest following the February 1st coup by the Tatmadaw. Obviously, they're not there at the moment. They're not home at the moment. Yet that doesn't mean that the Rohingya people are not affected by the coup. On the contrary, analysts believe that their situation could worsen as the Tatmadaw solidifies its power over the country and begins operating without a civilian government to hold them back, which is a bit of a worry. But even before this happens, there is a more immediate concern for these poor people. Speaking of on their situation post-coup, the Rohingya Christian Assembly issued a public statement on February 28, 2021, saying that Rohingya believers were finding themselves unable to go out for work due to the unrest and were struggling to survive without an income. Struggling to survive is the actual quote. The international community must support Myanmar's religious minorities, including Rohingya Christians, by pushing back against the Tatmadaw. Myanmar is in disarray, actually. That's not what it says here, but that's what I'm going to go for. And it could prove disastrous for the Burmese people if the Tatmadaw is allowed to keep power. I have some other stories on that. I won't be able to find them at this short notice, but it's something that I've been following along for a while. And yeah, Myanmar's in trouble, basically. So for sure, the Christians there could do with your prayers. That's a given, but I'd like to say it out loud because, you know, we could all, we could all do with a nudge in that direction. To be frank, I have quite a long list, so I sort of group people together. God already knows your heart before you say the prayer, but you must say the prayer because of the paradox of free will. Like, you must ask for the help that you would like to see visited on these poor people. Like, it's getting to the lowest of the low. Everyone's discriminated against, as it were, of this ethnic group, and then they are the smallest minority there. So yeah, that's something for you to. I'm going to include the link that I just read from in the description box, because it just isn't a video if I don't promise a link in the description box and then have a panic attack trying to remember what it was I promised. But I will do that. And yeah, apologies again for cutting short the ontological argument. I know that Lord Haha was fascinated. I could tell that by his closing comment, as it were. But I think it's interesting, and I think it's very interesting that it's been proved mathematically, because I'm currently working on not an ontological argument, but this propositional calculus. And wow, it's heartening to know that a machine could do it for you someday in the near future. Okay, then I don't see any admins, so I'm going to go ahead and say, please click the link for Discord, which is in the description box. Come and have a chat to us. Come and see us. We have sections in Discord that are devoted to Christian persecution, to Christian news in general, to what else? We have a Jihad Watch section. We have apologetics references, polemical instructions and materials. We have 2 debate channels and a general channel. We have lectures. We have lots of good stuff. If you are a paid member of the main SOCO channel, you get additional, like a platform 9 3/4 thing. You can see more of the server than other people can. And other than that, if you have any questions, don't worry, they won't seem stupid, because some of the conversations that go on can be quite drawn out, and people are very passionate about their views, let's put it that way. But yeah, do come along and check it out. What's the worst that can happen? It's completely free. So the link's in the description box. Also, there's potentially a link for my, I think, Rumble account and Patreon and Parler. That's the one. All right, then. I feel, yeah, okay. I'm going to say goodbye, and I think I will actually go straight over to Discord, because I feel like I've done some weird, like, 2-segment, very short thing here. But anyhow, lots of love. God bless you and keep you until I see you very soon. Bye-bye.